And welcome back. Well, the founder and chief executive officer of the WiSci enterprise, Dr. Knatokie Ford, is visiting Namibia. She's here with us, and she's here to participate in the 2018 Women in Science, or WiSci camp, which ends today. During her stay in Windhoek, she'll engage the schools and learners and teachers and education officers on the topic of science in education. Before we talk to Dr. Ford, let's take a look.
How many of you loved math as a kid? No? Okay. Now, how many of you were maybe in the other bucket and you probably didn't like math as much and you maybe felt, hey, maybe I'm not a math person? Unfortunately, we have a culture that makes it acceptable to opt out of developing math skills, but when it comes to literacy, it's not okay to say, hey, reading just wasn't my thing. This is a major problem because 80% of the fastest growing jobs require math or science skills.
Well, that was Dr. Knatokie Ford, and she was giving a TED Talk, quite interesting. And she's now joining us to talk about the Women in Science camp. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's always a big hoo-ha when we talk about women in science, girls in science, or girls with those mathematics and so forth. You visited Swakopmund and Walvis Bay, right?
Yes.
And so what's your take on the country and these two coastal towns?
Well, first, just beautiful. I did have a chance to see a bit of the coast. I went to the aquarium. I got to stop by the jetty, I believe it's called. Yeah. So yeah, really beautiful. But I would definitely say I was most impressed by the students that I had a chance to meet and talk to at the schools that I spoke at. Just such great engagement and energy from the students, and this is my first international speaking engagement, so this is my first time in Africa, and the welcome has just been tremendous. So I felt so welcomed, and the students, they've treated me like Beyonce. I feel like a superstar here, so it's just been a great experience meeting the students and just getting to see Africa, and Namibia has been just wonderful.
Great to know. You've previously served as a Science and Technology Policy Fellow. That's from 2012 to 2014. And then also with President Obama's Council of Advisory on Science and Technology. Talk to us about this. It is interesting, especially young black girls watching, seeing another lady sort of, get in on that.
Yeah, so my first job at in the Obama White House was as a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow. And this is a fellowship that the American Association for the Advancement of Science has that's designed to bring scientists and engineers to come and work in government. So up until I began that fellowship, I was a researcher in a lab. And I came straight from being a scientist in a lab and staffing this committee. So PCAS, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, was essentially President Obama's science brain trust. So these are amazing people who keep their very busy and important day jobs, from being university presidents to leaders of tech organizations, and they would come to Washington, D.C. every other month to meet and talk about a range of really pressing challenges in the science and technology policy space, and they would ultimately offer recommendations on a number of issues, including STEM education. So that was my first job at the White House, and I often describe it as the absolute best fly on a wall scenario, getting to be in these meetings with people who are coming up with solutions to really, really hard problems.
And what are some of the pressing challenges, would you say, in the science field at the moment? Yes.
So we have very big issues with attracting and retaining talent, diverse talent in particular. Women make up roughly half of the population, but are only about 28% of the workforce in the United States. For people of color, African Americans and Hispanics are almost 27% of the residential population, over 21 in the U.S., and don't even make up 11%. So one of our biggest challenges is trying to figure out how do we attract more people, especially more diverse people, and then keep them. And it's not simply a matter of needing more physical bodies, we're missing out on ideas, because diversity is so important for driving innovation. Teams that are more diverse are more creative and more innovative when it comes to solving complex problems. So we're really trying to work hard to attract and retain a more diverse talent pool for the STEM workforce.
Absolutely. Talk to us about WiSci Enterprise. Give us all the details.
Yes, so this is my baby. This is my brainchild.
Yes.
So when I completed my fellowship with Obama's PCAST, I was at this place where I was like, I've had this incredible career so far, and I want to do something that would allow me to bring all these pieces together. So once upon a time, I had been an educator in the classroom. I also dabbled in the entertainment industry. I was an aspiring actress at one point. And so it was this experience of being an educator and an actress, a scientist, and also someone who's worked in the policy space, that I came up with this idea of, well, maybe media can be this game changer for helping us address these really persistent issues that we have with retaining and attracting a diverse workforce. And the idea basically became known as the Image of STEM project. And it's essentially addressing the negative stigmas and stereotypes that are associated with the STEM workforce. For instance, if you tell a group of girls that boys are better at math, those girls will perform worse on the math test than if you had not identified this negative stereotype at all. So the perception and the stereotype piece is so critical, and much more needs to be done to address it, because it's killing interest and confidence in our young people. And so that's what WiSci Enterprise, my organization, is all about. It's basically me. I'm a one-woman enterprise at this point, but I work with media organizations and different companies who are looking to leverage the power of storytelling to promote social change. So that's essentially what my organization is about.
Yeah, and I suppose it also starts with the basis of it, the way we are socialized when it comes to gender roles, the way we are brought up. What do you believe parents nowadays need to do to divert from that, so we don't keep this problem going? Yeah,
so it's one of the things that's also becoming a very prominent part of this conversation is implicit bias. So many times the people have these associations unintentionally that they perceive about a person based on their gender or even their ethnic background that influence their judgment and even actions. And so with parents, sometimes there can be this unintentional sense of expecting your boys to be better or to encourage them to go in to do math and science, and not as much with girls. And so the issue is helping people become more aware of the fact that they might have this implicit bias that might be acting at play, especially for parents. But even beyond the implicit bias piece, it's important to build confidence in parents to know that you don't have to be a person with a STEM degree or background to raise a child that could be interested in it. Another research study found that parents who have anxiety about math, that try to help their kids with math, those learners do worse on their math studies than if they had not gotten any help at all. So the parental factor is critical, just as critical, in terms of helping more parents feel empowered to nurture their child's interests, but also to not transfer their own anxieties about math and science to their kids.
I love the fact that you've sort of humanized science, basically, brought it down and made us all understand, or are helping us to understand that, there are certain factors that we need to consider. Let's talk about the importance of women in this field of study. I know you've mentioned it slightly, and also the importance of working with young girls at school level.
Yes, so focusing on the young girls aspect, it's critical to start early, because students that express interest in STEM by middle school are 3 times as likely to go on to get a STEM degree. So if we wait until they're in high school or college to try to attract them, I don't want to say it's too late, but it's a much more difficult challenge. Yeah. So it's so important to try to engage our kids, and also our girls especially, and it's this confidence piece that is so critical. There's a number of studies that are emerging that talk about the fear of failure as another aspect of what's discouraging our kids, especially girls, from even attempting or believing that they're capable of excelling in the STEM fields. And so the confidence piece is critical, but also getting people to not be afraid to fail as another aspect that's important for addressing this.
Well, Dr. Ford, very nice meeting you and getting to nitpick your mind. It sort of reminds me of Hidden Figures, the story that wasn't told about women working in the background to actually, you know, figure things out, but not being credited for it.
Yes, Hidden Figures is a great example. It's literally the epitome of my image of STEM project. It was actually my last official event as a Obama White House staffer, was to organize a screening of Hidden Figures. And just to track what's happened since that film has been released, just the impact that it's made even on American or global culture has been incredible. We had little girls dressing up as the Hidden Figures for Halloween. The Barbie introduced a Katherine Johnson Barbie doll earlier this year as a part of the Inspiring Women series. And so this film is just such a beautiful display of why it's so important to tell these stories, because I think often the assumption is that women and people of color have not been contributors to innovation. In fact, the contrary is true. And so that's another important aspect, is showing our kids more diverse role models and also real people who've been a part of innovation and helping to make the world a better place. And it's a really important aspect to inspire the next generation of kids in STEM.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Dr. Knatokie Ford, she's a founder and CEO of WiSci Enterprise, here to talk to us about the importance of encouraging young girls to be part of the STEM subjects, how to, you know, push them forward. And she was also here as part of the Women in Science camp that was giving young girls an opportunity to do more. Do stay tuned. We'll be